So Sam Harris would basically point out that your brain, your mind, is consciously just spitting out thoughts. It's generating thoughts based on information it's perceiving that is being synthesized with information that's already present, that is kind of like a mental map of the world of some sorts that can categorize the incoming sense data and place it into a certain context and meaning, which then produces the thought about what that thing is and what it can do, its implications. And you kind of live in this like sequence where you're just going about your day and your mind is just like generating thought, and then you can decide, do I agree and action this thought, or can I take the thought and send it back to the lab and evaluate it some more so that a different thought comes out, and then maybe that thought is better and doesn't have the same type of problem. That's kind of like what people at a basic level do when they simulate scenarios in their head, right? You can think of somebody who's like anxious about a social scenario or something else. Like, what does it mean for them to be anxious about the scenario? It means they're kind of sitting there and their brain is automatically generating ideas, visuals, perceptions about like what other people might say, what they might think, trying to use the mental model of other people to fit into our mental environment, and kind of essentially using the generation of thoughts to kind of either control or lose control of a situation potentially. But the point is, your brain does this in an unconscious way. It kind of is able to just spit out the thought, and your conscious level, all you're really doing is either agreeing to that thought or saying no to it and somehow like getting it to reprocess. Do you feel like what I'm saying makes sense, or is this not your experience?
It makes sense.
You're looking a little dumbfounded. You're like sitting there.
I think I disagree maybe with some of what you're saying, but it makes sense for sure. Well, I've been developing a framework about like the way that we interact as well, and I personally feel like we have a lot more control over our understanding space, is what I call it in my framework, than it sounds like many of these atheist thinkers would imply.
Yeah. I mean, I also disagree with them in a way, but I think that, yeah, some of these other problems that I've mentioned about like gender and so on are related to this.
Yeah.
Which I'll try to explain. But I mean, okay, at a basic level, yeah, your unconscious mind exists and it generates thoughts. Now, how we can control and have space to have more free will, that is a very important problem that we can talk about more. You're right that there is some room for it, some extent of it, but it's not super straightforward. You can't decide what's the next thought that's going to pop into your mind.
But you can influence the future thoughts that you
influence it. You can influence it, but how are you really influencing it? You're going about your life with certain goals and perspectives in mind, and you're kind of like, what led you to waking up this morning and getting on this call with me? It's like, we talked about it and proposed about it earlier. You didn't need to like generate or like wake up and have to like generate from scratch the thought of maybe doing this. It was already latent, and it just kind of like, preceded by the logic of the day in some sense. So there is some room for free will, but it's not a given. It's not so simple to say that we can always exercise free will. For the most part, people are operating by what their unconscious mind is kind of producing or generating. And another way to think about this is, okay, let's say we aren't sure if free will exists, we're agnostic about it, but then, so we can't prove if it's deterministic or not, but how should we act as a result if we can't prove it? Well, we could act like we're predetermined and then actually be predetermined, or we can act as if we have free will and do crazy shit, and then that would prove that we do actually have free will, maybe. So it's kind of like the way that you approach it maybe actually changes it. So we only have free will, maybe to the extent that we say that we do. If we stop saying we have free will, we actually lose free will, maybe.
Maybe.
But the point is that there needs to be some space to fit that in. If you don't want to say it, if you just kind of agree with Sam Harris and you go in like the physical determinism route, you will end up essentially like denying it to other people. Other people can like choose differently, but for him there would still be some sort of development of like reciprocal sharing of information, and maybe we could still arrive at some more like peaceful society. But this is like something that we can't really control. Essentially, we're gonna have to clash until it inevitably happens.
Yeah.